Welcome to the third video of this section, Generating Controllers. In our previous video, we learned how to generate models using YII, and then explored some of their features. Now, we're going to do the same thing with controllers. We'll use YII's CRUD generator to create controllers and views for our monster test object, learn how to tell what controller is being used on a particular page of our application, and then understand some of the common tasks that controllers perform. Go ahead and open up YII again, and click the Start button under the CRUD generator. Most of you will already know that CRUD is an acronym for Create, Read, Update, Delete, which are the four common actions one would perform on data in an application. YII allows us to generate all of the code to do this with a single click. Our model class is App, Models, Monster Test. The model search class is something that we explore in more detail in a later section, but for now, the convention is simply to append search to the model name. Same thing goes here for the controller class, except that the suffix here is controller. The view path will sort itself out, so go ahead and click Preview, and then Generate. YII will tell us that it has created 8 new files for us, all with one click. Isn't that great? Before we look at our generated code, let's talk for a second about what a controller does. Generally speaking, controllers are the place in your code where you will load and save models and provide data to your views, which we will discuss in the next video. Also, controllers are typically the place where you will process user input if there is any. But how does your application know which controller to load? By default, it comes from the URL. For instance, in the last few videos we worked on the About page, and the URL for that was Site About. If we open the Controllers folder, we see a site controller. If we open that file, we see a method called ActionAbout. This is the method that YII calls when you access Site About, and in this case it has a single purpose, to load the About view using its render method. And if you remember, when we went to edit that page, we logically went to Views, Site, About.php. Now that we understand the basics of controllers, let's go ahead and open up our new monster test controller. You can see that there are several actions, and each one of these can be accessed by navigating to the corresponding URL. For instance, if we take a look at the action index method, we will see that we should be able to access something at monstertest/index. And we can. Just so you know, you can leave out the index part if the method is action index, as it is assumed when no action is provided. If we look at that method, there is a lot going on. For now, all you need to know is that the method is creating a new monster test search object, which is used to get a filtered array of monster test objects. The second line takes user-supplied search parameters and feeds them to the monster test search object. We've already seen the render method, but in this case it has a second parameter, which is an associative array. Each item in this array is an object which the controller has created and is now passing into the corresponding view script. So for instance, the search model variable that was created in this controller will now be available in views monster test index.php as a variable called search model. Controller actions can also take parameters which are passed in via the URL. For instance, click the eye icon in the first row, and you'll see that we are brought to monstertest/view?id = 1. If we take a look at the action view method, we will see that it takes a single parameter called id. It is fed to the findModel method at the bottom of the controller, which simply calls find1 in order to load a model with the corresponding id, or throw an exception if no model is found with that id. Eventually, that model is passed through to views monstertest view. Finally, let's take a look at a slightly more complicated controller method, ActionUpdate. As we can see in our browser, this page creates a form which is pre-populated with the current attribute values of our friend Dracula, and upon submission updates those values in the database. If we look at the ActionUpdate method of the monster test controller, we'll see the first thing that it does is load the proper model based on the ID parameter specified in the URL. Next, it checks to see if the form was submitted, and if so, it feeds the values from that form into the model, and then attempts to save it. If the form is valid, the controller redirects us to the View action. And if not, or if the form wasn't submitted, it loads the update page. So now you've learned how to easily generate all of the code you need for your controllers and taken a closer look at the part that they play. In the next video, we will complete our MVC puzzle by taking a closer look at views.